So what if we have an equation in which we're not sure, we look at it, what do we do? Anytime you have an equation where the exponent is greater than 1, the first step is always to move all your terms to the same side. And I always say, wherever the highest degree is, move them to the side of the highest. So the x squared is on the left, so let's move all our terms to the left. So to do that, we're going to minus the 26. So we have 5x squared, 6 minus 6, 26 is negative 20, and 26 minus 26 is 0. So now we have our zero product property is going to come into play because we have equal to 0. Once we do that, we're going to take this side and we're going to factor it like we just were discussing. So the first thing we look for is a GCF. In this case, 5 is a GCF. If we factor 5 out, we get x squared minus 4. Okay, so the GCF is 5. From there, we look at what's here and we see it's minus, so difference, and the variable is a perfect square, so we're going to go to 2 sets of parentheses, one with a plus, one with a minus. The 5 comes down in front. What is the square root of x squared? X. What is the square root of 4? 2. And then we have our equals 0. So now we actually have an equation, not just a factor. So we found our factors. Now we have to set our factors equal to 0. So the first factor is 5. And we write 5 equals 0, and you say, well, that doesn't make any sense, so this is not relevant. We don't need to worry about that. The next factor is x plus 2. So x plus 2 equals 0. If we solve that, we get x equals negative 2. And the last factor is x minus 2. So we set that equal to 0, and we solve that. We get x equals 2. So our solutions are negative 2 and positive 2. When we do a quick check and we go back to the original, 5 times negative 2 squared plus 6 should be 26. So let's check. Negative 2 squared is 4. So order of operations, we do exponents first. 5 times 4 is 20, plus 6 is 26. Okay, and the same thing would happen with 2, because if we put the 2 in, 2 squared is also 4. Let's look at D as another example. So again, we always move our terms to the left-hand side to join the other terms. So we're going to minus the 26 from both sides. We get 1/2 x squared minus 32 equals 0. Okay, and now we want to get this factored, so we're going to look for a GCF. Okay, if we take the GCF of 1/2 out, we can factor out the 1/2 and get x squared minus 64. And that may seem interesting because you got a bigger number, but remember we're dividing by 2 if we multiply by a half. So half of 64 is 32. Now we look at this. We have 2 terms with a difference. The variable is a perfect square, so we're going to go to our parentheses. The 1/2 goes in front. We have x and x with our plus and our minus. The square root of 64 is 8. So x plus 8 equals 0. X is negative 8. X minus 8 equals 0. X is positive 8. 2 solutions to the same problem. And the last part is, what about if we have a grouping symbol? So let's look at A, and we have y minus 6 squared equals 81. Same idea, we need to move all our terms to make it equal to 0. So we're going to keep the y minus 6 squared, and we're going to minus the 81 to the same side. Now if you notice this, we have a squared here. So we can think of this as a variable. The y minus 6 can be one single variable that's being squared. So we break this into 2 sets of parentheses, and we take the square root of the first term. We get y minus 6 at the beginning of each set. And then we take the square root of the second term. We get 1 plus and 1 minus. The square root of 81 is 9. And we get 0. And we take each factor. Y minus 6 plus 9 equals 0. And y minus 6 minus 9 equals 0. And if we solve this, we get y plus 3 equals 0. So y is negative 3. And over here, we get y minus 15 equals 0. Y is 15.